Welcome to season 2 of the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. I'm super pumped to kick off this season by diving into a topic that is both powerful and yet often misunderstood. Obviously, it is emotional intelligence. There are still so many myths and misconceptions and confusion about what emotional intelligence really is and how it affects our lives. So today we are breaking it all down. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through 10 essential components of emotional intelligence, from things like self-awareness to conflict resolution, and clear up some of those common misunderstandings, I think, along the way that a lot of us have. Plus, as usual, I'm going to be sharing examples, personal examples from my own relationships with my kids, my husband, family and friends. Sorry, guys, no. So this really shows you how emotional intelligence can strengthen your connections, can help you stay grounded even in really challenging moments, and it's going to bring you a whole lot more resilience into every relationship you have. I actually went back through season 1 and I wanted to have a look at what were some of the most popular episodes. I'm going to shout a few out in case you missed them and you want to go back and check them out. So a couple of the huge ones were how to encourage an apology using emotional intelligence, obviously from your kids. How to really start your emotional intelligence journey, like where do we begin? That was an awesome one. People also really loved number 5, like literally all the way back. Episode 5 was how I diffused a meltdown in 15 minutes. Like, this is doable, guys. We are not like unicorns, okay? We just have the tools and the strategies to be able to do this stuff. So obviously I want to share it with you. Number 11 was a punishment-free home. Whoa, there was a lot of comments and opinions about that one, but like all really good. I also did, you guys know, I have some guests on, and one of the first, actually I think the first guest was Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, and we talked about big emotions and attachment and intention. That was a huge episode. Parenting on a different page. So, okay, there's heaps. I encourage you to go back through season 1 if you have time. If you're like, I don't know, commuting or cooking or cleaning or just walking, exercising, like put in a podcast. It's such a really great use of your time. So, and yeah, I want to share this with as many people as possible. Okay, so I do want to say a massive thank you for everyone tuning in to the podcast over the last year. I'm really grateful to be on this journey with you, especially as we step into season 2. So before we begin, I want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, their elders and ancestors, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. And by the way, I didn't really introduce who I was, but I'm hoping that you guys have at least caught a few episodes before now. I'm Stephanie Pinto, the host of the podcast. I'm a mum of 2. I'm a best-selling author and international speaker and an award-winning coach, which is exciting. And basically, I love all things emotional intelligence. So that's my little spiel. Let's get straight into it. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's start off with a kind of recap of what is emotional intelligence and kind of what are some aspects to it, because it's actually a huge umbrella term. There are so many moving pieces of emotional intelligence. It's not just self-awareness, which a lot of people think it is. It's also not just empathy and understanding other people's emotions. Some people think it's that as well. So there's a bit of myths and misconceptions, I guess, that I want to bust in this episode. And I want to kind of set the record straight and give you guys a little bit more information about I think the depths of emotional intelligence and how impactful it is, not just for parents, not just for teachers and educators, but people, in any relationship with others, which really, unless you're a hermit, is everyone. So this is why it's huge in teams and organizations as well in the corporate world. So anyway, let's have a look. Okay, what is the, I want to say definition or maybe the explanation of emotional intelligence? So if I'm being a little bit cheeky and silly, and sometimes I do, if I'm being interviewed on a podcast or on a conference or summit or something, I will often say, you know what, it's just being smart with your emotions, when not a lot of us are very smart with our emotions at all. And I joke around because obviously it's way more than that, but also because I was for a long time probably the world's most emotionally unintelligent person, or one of them at least. And so I really sucked at this stuff. Didn't know it at the time, because I had probably zero self-awareness. But that is a story for another day. But yeah, it's something that I think, when we start to learn about emotional intelligence, we really start to understand how impactful it is for, anyone, as I said, who has relationships with other kids or other adults and people around them. So this stuff, I've mentioned on other episodes and YouTube videos and stuff, this has impacted my marriage like you would not believe. Sometimes I think, would we still be married if I didn't have emotional intelligence? Like the amount of conflicts and disagreements and arguments and those, like, you know, when you take things personally and get pissed off and upset, like that stuff is now few and far between. Like it's a crazy time when we have like a big blow up. Well, I don't even know if we have those anymore. So, okay. So when I don't just do that, you know, quick little definition of emotional intelligence, being smart with your emotions, the longer explanation is that being emotionally intelligent means you're able to be aware of your own emotions and those of others in the moment, and to be able to use that information to guide your actions, to make good decisions, and to adjust your behavior. So there's a lot in that. The points that I often pick out are, number one, obviously the self-awareness piece. I have to be able to understand my own emotions and recognize them. We're going to talk about self-awareness in a sec. So there's that piece, but then it's also and those of others. So it's and understanding and having an awareness and appreciation of other people's emotions, my kids' emotions, my husband's, my neighbors, my in-laws, like whoever, right? So also, I think honoring that other people have emotions which drive their behavior. And then in the moment is another piece of that, like definition, I guess, or explanation, to be able to do this stuff in the moment when you're in maybe a heated situation with someone or a challenging moment with your kids. When you're able to do it in the moment and actually pause and reflect and like dial up your emotional intelligence, which I say a lot, oh my goodness, it's like a game changer. It is actually game changing to be able to do this stuff and recognize it happening, notice how you're feeling and how that's driving your behavior, whether you're snappy or short or, you know, about to throw out a consequence. Like, to be able to do that in the moment is massive. Like I said, it avoids and it prevents, it prevents a lot of conflict and power struggles, like you name it. Door slamming. We had that in our house. I'm sure everyone does. So they're kind of the main points that I want to pick out of, you know, what is emotional intelligence. The last kind of few parts that I said in that definition, if I just repeat it quickly, it's the ability to be aware of your own emotions and those of others in the moment, and to be able to use that information to guide your actions, to make good decisions, and to adjust your behavior. Those kind of three parts at the end, like, oh, there's so much in that. But really, it's about understanding that those, how you're feeling, basically your mood, your nervous system state, like your state of regulation, is literally driving your behavior, your language, the words that you say, your non-verbal, like your body language, everything. Like knowing that is driving how you're showing up. Because, okay, so here's a perfect example. Let's say your kids spill some food or drink on the carpet in front of the TV when you've told them not to, like 1,000 times, you know, you've told them to eat at the table or whatever. Let's say that happens when you've just come home from a beautiful holiday and you're feeling refreshed and you don't have work piled up, like you're feeling rejuvenated, you're feeling regulated and balanced and positive and optimistic. You get the picture, right? Kids will spill something and you're like, guys, come on, let me help you. Quick, go get the paper towel. Like, I told you to eat up at the table. I know you make mistakes. It's okay. Come on, we can sort it out. On the flip side, imagine that you have just had the worst week in the world, full of work, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. In that moment, you are probably going to lash out and erupt over your kids and say, guys, I've told you to eat on the table. What do you think you're doing? Like, get in your room now. No TV tonight. Like, you know how it goes, right? So two very different, well, the same situation, but two very different outcomes, depending on how our mood and emotions, are causing us to show up, basically. Let's now look at about 10, I've written down 10 pieces of emotional intelligence, almost like 10 areas that combine to create this whole way of being, this whole approach, this whole methodology of emotional intelligence. Okay, so this is not an exhaustive list, by the way. When I actually got trained in emotional intelligence by the Institute of Social and Emotional Intelligence in the US, we looked at this quadrant called, I think it's just called the 4-quadrant model, very original, and it broke up emotional intelligence into 4 quadrants, 4 sections. And then within each, there are multiple different aspects or competencies, like skill areas, if that makes sense. So 26 making up all the 4 quadrants. If you guys happen to have a copy of my book that came out last year, From Chaos to Connection, then you're going to see it. I think it's in like chapter 1. So I listed out all of them. So there's 26 areas that make it up. And the 4 quadrants, if I remember them off the top of my head, self-awareness, self-management, other awareness, I'll explain what that is, and then relationship management. So they're the 4. Anyway, I don't want you to get bogged down in that, but I'm just getting across the point that it's actually really, there's a lot of depth and, to emotional intelligence. Okay, so here are some key points that are going to help you understand emotional intelligence and apply it, I think, more easily in your family once you get like the moving pieces. Okay, so the first one is maybe no surprises. This is self-awareness. So first part of the puzzle, first step, if you've watched any of my videos or listened to these podcast episodes, you'll probably know that I talk about self-awareness being like emotional intelligence 101. So knowing and understanding your own emotions, your triggers and your strengths as well, and actually even your, I want to say, areas of weakness or areas of growth, this is like foundational for emotional intelligence. It actually helps you to recognize how you feel and how your emotions affect your thoughts and your behavior. So I was just talking about that, right? By the way, we all have blind spots. We all have, for example, selfish parts, judgmental parts, like that little inner critic, the part of our, inner voice that comes out. So knowing that, like that you're human and that we all have these emotions that drive us, that's like huge. That's actually massive. Second one is self-regulation. So this is really looking at how we can manage our emotions in healthy ways, not like doom scrolling, not shoving them down or eating ice cream or doing some online shopping. I don't know what people do, but, in healthy ways, learning how to process and release emotions, like learning from them, but yeah, regulating them. So some parts of, I guess, self-regulation are things like pausing before you're reacting, staying calm under pressure, and handling stress without letting those emotions control your actions. So, man, particularly in the parenting space, but like if you're a teacher or educator as well, if you're in the workplace, like there's moments of stress, and when things go wrong or don't go to plan, like how do you control your emotional reactions in those moments? That's huge, right? And it's something we all, I think, have to work at. Number 3 is empathy. I think I mentioned at the start, a lot of people see empathy, emotional intelligence as empathy, like they're interchangeable. It's only one facet. So yes, we need to be empathetic to a point. Someone mentioned the other day, I can't remember where it was, or maybe they messaged it to me, something about toxic empathy, like being overly empathetic, almost like hypersensitive to other people's moods and emotions. Like there's a part of that that's beautiful, and we need people in the world like that. And then there's part of that, it is toxic, because we can absorb people's emotions, and then, possibly become a people pleaser, develop anxiety. Some of this is ringing true for me. So very, very interesting. If we're looking at empathy, obviously it's understanding and respecting the emotions of others. I will often say, I make a point of saying this at conferences, and if I'm interviewed, other people's emotions and experiences are as true for them as yours are for you. Okay, we have to validate, we have to honor that. Don't try and argue with how someone else is feeling. Like, that's not, right? Why are you so upset? Oh man, you're going to get that like conflict. Hello. So empathy obviously allows us to connect really deeply with other people, to validate their feelings and see things from different perspectives to our own. This is super essential for building strong relationships. If you want to have the ability to, I want to say, like, influence your kids' decisions, like to make good ones as they're older, like teenagers and beyond, we need to be able to have a level of empathy and a deep connection with them, so that they kind of like care about what we think and they care about what we say. You can only influence someone. I can only influence my husband because we have a strong relationship. I can say, oh, I'm really sorry, I meant to, but could you please do it instead? And he will do it, like, and vice versa, if that makes sense. Fourth one is social skills. So people often don't realize social skills is a big chunk of emotional intelligence. Effectively communicating and relating to other people is what this is about. So strong emotional intelligence in us as parents or even our kids, this kind of includes skills like active listening. You may have heard of active listening, helping people to really feel heard when your kid is upset because you gave them the red cup, not the blue cup. Like you can validate and make them feel heard without agreeing that that's a really big problem. Okay. Conflict resolution. So resolving conflict, man, I'm doing that with my kids on the daily because the show that they wanted to watch is no longer on Netflix, or, their sister or brother won't share the remote, or, someone's eaten the last of the cookies. I don't know. This stuff, conflict resolution, sounds like it's adult only, like in the workplace, how you learn about professional development and stuff it's not, it's actually for anyone, any age. And within social skills as well is obviously positive communication. I have a love of, clear, open, honest, authentic communication and listening. I mentioned active listening because my background is as a pediatric speech pathologist. So that speech therapy background and the communication is like always kind of there for me. 5 is motivation. Another maybe myth, people think that being motivated is like just something we all internally have and it's normal, or if you don't have it, then there's something wrong with you or broken. It actually comes under emotional intelligence as well, and I'll tell you why. This concept, I think, of like cultivating this internal drive and resilience, like people don't understand these things all kind of mesh together. Emotional intelligence does involve things like setting goals, pushing through challenges, even when things get tough and you kind of want to quit, or you don't know how it's going to work out, rather than just relying solely on external or extrinsic motivation or rewards. It's actually having that internal drive. So this I think that's actually a fascinating like subset or like skill area of emotional intelligence. But okay, let's move on. Number 6, this is handling criticism. I sometimes suck at that. This is a growth area for me. No one likes to feel criticized. No one likes feeling maybe even a sense of contempt. And that sense of shame that comes up if we're not good enough, or we perceive we're not good enough, or we've done the wrong thing. Big deep breaths. So if we can, as I said before, I like this phrase, dial up our emotional intelligence and understand how to receive feedback with openness and authenticity and resilience, that is really, really powerful. Because like I said before, we've got blind spots. So emotionally intelligent people can accept constructive criticism or someone pointing out maybe a flaw or a blind spot or something they said they would do but they didn't, without becoming super defensive, going on the attack, and then, ending in conflict. But actually kind of seeing these as opportunities to grow. We all have these, like I have them, my husband has them, my kids. I think, again, this is a universal thing. Criticism is hard to deal with, but we can take the emotional sting out of it and see it for what it is. Another person's subjective perception of us or our behavior. Okay, number 7 is, I like this one, awareness of nonverbal communication. So I mentioned my communication background before. Noticing body language and tone of voice and facial expression. Oh my God, there are people out there who have like no concept. You'll be talking to them about, like, you'll be in a conversation with someone and you've tuned out, or you are not interested, or you've got somewhere to be, or you've got something massive, like an emotionally something going on, and they just don't even pick it up, and they're not even aware, and they just like go on with their story, or they like, oh my goodness. It is such a powerful skill to have this strong awareness of people's nonverbal communication, because you're picking up these extra like so many emotions are communicated non-verbally, right? So being attentive to these cues in other people really helps you better understand and respond to others. And people leave those interactions or that connection, like conversation, going, wow, that, like, I feel really good, or I feel heard and seen, or, respected. So number 8 is managing conflict calmly and constructively. Again, not easy to do. Some of these are not really, some of these you might find are easier for you than others. We all have strength and growth areas. So it is what it is. right? We can acknowledge that, and we can then work towards, what is something that is stressing me out or not serving me or coming up again and again. Let me actually do some work around that. Okay, so managing conflict. If we can approach disagreements with like a solution-focused mindset, emotional intelligence really helps you to manage these conflicts, which, like I said, happen every day, probably multiple times a day, without escalating it and making things worse and adding fuel to the fire, ending in a power struggle if it's kid-related, and actually work towards mutually beneficial solutions or mutual understanding and resolution. So, like I said, if our kids are arguing over a toy or the remote or the computer or I don't know, something, like if I can dial up my emotional intelligence, respond in a calm way, see this as just a problem that's waiting to be solved, which I'm stealing that line from Dr. Ross Greene because I love his work, that's massive. Like I said, this stuff, emotional intelligence, has genuinely probably saved my marriage, and it probably saves, I don't know, thousands of like meltdowns and fights every year. It's wild. And I want this for you guys. This is why I've like made this podcast. This is why I have my YouTube channel. This is why I wrote the book. I'm like, guys, people don't know about this. We all think emotions are fluffy and silly and stupid and a waste of time. And I'm like, gah, it cannot be further from the truth. Okay, I have 2 more left, number 9 and 10, and I have a couple of minutes because I just realized the time and I have to get going to a client session. So we're going to make this quick, and I'm going to do my outro later on. But I want to finish these off because I love this stuff. I think it's really good. Okay, so number 9, maybe a little bit left of field here. This is building trust. Big part of emotional intelligence is the ability for you to build trust in the people around you. Do you know how many parents, I used to do a lot of parent coaching on Zoom in this stuff, like this area, right? I used to run groups and everything. Now I do less of that because I'm doing more speaking at conferences, I'm more writing. I'm on to my second manuscript. Help me out. I'm getting so distracted and not like, I wanted to finish that by the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen. So many parents that I spoke to are like, I don't even talk to my parents anymore. I've moved away like to another country, or we've cut them off. Like the trust and connection, absolutely gone. Most of the time, I'm going to say like the majority of the time, because when these parents were children, when they were being raised, the trust was being eroded by things like, I want to say, hypocritical behavior, telling your kids like, stop yelling when you're yelling at them, or like, we're not allowed to hit each other, like never hit, or do that behavior, and then they get smacked. And like the stories I've heard, it's amazing. Okay, so trust is a major outcome of emotional intelligent parenting, but just being emotionally intelligent in relationships. You literally can't argue that. It's like the foundation of all positive relationships. So that's a no-brainer. By the way, trust is like when we build and maintain trust, we do that by showing empathy. Like when I'm having a bad day and everything's going wrong and my husband is actually empathetic to me. He's like, Steph or babe, let me hear it. Like what's going on? Reliability as well, like doing what you say you're going to do, being where you say you're going to be, helping a person out when you offer it, that kind of thing. And emotional honesty. No one likes being lied to, and people can tell. Like, can't you guys tell when someone is being emotionally dishonest? They're like, this used to be me. My husband would be like, babe, what's up? And I'm like, nothing. I'm fine. He's like, oh crap. Things were not fine. Passive aggressive and so on. Anyway, last one, number 10, is resilience. I spoke to a lovely gentleman just recently who actually does a lot of work in Western Australia in the resilience space. We're going to do some stuff together, which is really exciting. And I wanted to pick his brain about resilience. So this is, I don't know if you guys have heard that concept or the saying about bouncing back from setbacks and adversity. Like adversity, things going wrong or tough moments, emotionally challenging, things going wrong basically. Oh my goodness, that's going to happen whether you are 2 or 102. It's just going to look different, right? Adversity is inevitable. If we can build this sense of resilience, like even when things go wrong, I'm still a good person, or I can make this work, or maybe it wasn't meant to be, I'm going to take a different route. Like managing the emotions that come with setbacks and adversity, like disappointment or hurt or embarrassment or shame. Oh my goodness, that's emotional intelligence. So being able to dial up our emotional intelligence in order to help us get through tough times and emotionally charged periods in life, I just think this is so powerful. It's so profound. Emotional intelligence really helps people to adapt, to stay motivated, and to see these challenges as, an opportunity for growth rather than just a big giant rock in the road that means, well, I'm going to give up. Okay, so I know that was a lot, those 10 essential components of emotional intelligence. I know there's a lot to take in on that, and I think I mentioned at the start that's not even an exhaustive list, but I thought that's enough for a podcast episode and just to share with you guys today. To quickly recap, the 10 were self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, motivation, handling Christmas, handling criticism, awareness of non-verbal communication, managing conflict calmly and constructively, building trust in strong relationships, cultivating resilience. Thank you so much for being patient with all the little interruptions. I'm hoping that I edited it well enough that you guys didn't hear my son come in, my husband came in, he gave me some noodles for lunch that day, and I was trying to wrap it up before I was heading off to a client. Oh my goodness. So please, thank you for bearing with me. And I'm doing the best I can, and yet, mum life. So just another thank you for joining me in season 2. I really hope today gave you a fresh perspective on what emotional intelligence really is and how it can honestly transform all of your relationships. If you found this episode helpful, I would love for you to share it with someone who might benefit too. And here is to a season of, I think, growth, connection, and obviously becoming more emotionally intelligent together. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place.